sports bets. We're going to talk some DFS. It's a big day, a lot going on. Sheets had a really nice night last night. I had my normal strong run in my big buy-in one, but didn't quite finish the job. But we're ready to get back after it today, and we've got a lot of stuff going on. It's a tough baseball slate, and it's a very small basketball slate, but there's a lot to think about. Anyway, Sheets, what are your sort of thoughts about sort of the overall sports day? It's a little more relaxing, right, without the 4 basketball games?
Yeah, it definitely is, and yet on the other hand, I was getting really into this 4-game slates. It was a nice manageable number, and yet still provided the opportunity to do some different things without being too off the wall. So I did like the just every day having the 4-game slates, and now when you get some 2s, you get some 3s, you might get some 1s. What are they going to do, by the way? You think for the next round, are they going to have just 2 games, just like that?
Yeah, I think they're going to mix it up just depending on how the slates break down by day. It's weird because DraftKings only showed 1 game today on the slate until about 1 p.m. Eastern time this morning. They still didn't even have the other game on there, which is crazy because they had it on the schedule. They just didn't show it up on the DK Live app. So people were kind of trying to figure out what was going on, myself being one of them. Anyway, it's pretty wild stuff. I'm just making sure to get this tweet out so we get everybody in chat. Anyway, it is going to be kind of a shame to not have that as much anymore.
Yeah, but you know what? Like you said, we're lucky to get anything. So it's
yeah, exactly. We got to take what we can get.
And then since we're allowed to talk about like sports in general, I don't know if we said this in the last show, but they've got a little ways to go. But they've done just a great job. They've done a great job making the basketball work. The play has been. We didn't even talk about that. The play has been beyond top notch. Like my son to me a couple of days ago. Actually, maybe a week or so ago, he's like, did these guys get better or in the last 3 months when we haven't seen it, or are we just not used to it? And then now I'm starting to hear rumors about how because of the bubble, the depth perception of the they don't have the same problems with depth perception, the big arenas, so they can see the rim a little bit better. That's why they're doing whatever. And I said to Matt, I'm sure there's a big conspiracy that they probably just increased the rim by 3 inches just to get more points up on the board. But these guys are just so good, and they've been putting forth just total max effort. I was a little, I don't want to say suspicious, but I was a little rolling my eyes at the way they were handling the fake fans and the announcers and all this stuff. But I'm telling you, they put together, because they're the NBA. The NBA, that's why the NBA is the best, right? And they put together a tremendous product and saved the sport. Let's put it that way. I can only hope that baseball and and God help football. Because football is going to be interesting, right? Because it's not like baseball where if a couple of guys in football get COVID, they can't cancel the game. You know what I mean? A team can't, because it affects the whole schedule. You know what I mean? You can't have somebody miss 4 games like in baseball. So I hope football has a plan for it. But I'm kind of psyched the way sports has been rolling around. You want to know the truth?
Yeah, honestly, the quality of basketball has just been unbelievable. And I think part of it also is there's nothing else to focus on. You don't have guys playing hungover. There's a lot of things going on. It's just that's their focus right now. And I think that you're getting the absolute best out of them. And you see what happens when you get the best. For the most part, offense does – look, defense might win championships, but in a given day, offense is going to beat defense. Good offense will beat good defense. In the long run, maybe we have an argument, but that's what's happening so far. You just see this offensive explosions from all these teams. How many 50-point games have we seen? It's been incredible.
And you would have had 2 more yesterday if the game wasn't over. You know what I mean? In the Laker game, those guys would have scored as many as they wanted.
I totally agree. So let's get to it. Let's talk a little bit about the NBA first, because it starts earlier, but we don't really have a whole lot of information we're waiting on. I did build a mock lineup, and I have some takes on who's going to win today. Did you have? And we'll get in. I guess we'll just go into the first game in the Denver-Utah game, which first of all I think has been an awesome series, even though I think Denver needs. And it sucks because I like Mike Malone, but I just don't think he's a good postseason coach. I feel that way a little. I think Budenholzer is a great coach. I don't think he's a good team coach, but I don't feel good about these adjustments. I don't feel good about what he's doing. They've got tons of talent, and yet you're playing Michael Porter 15 minutes in the last game, and it's all over the map. And I know it worked in game 1, but I was watching this going, wow, when you have 3 of your 5 guys playing who are not your regular closing guys in the first game of the playoffs, something's wrong with you. I don't care if you're missing some guys. You've been missing them the whole bubble. They should have figured this out by now. I sort of like Denver to make a run today. I don't have the spread in front of me right now. For some reason, that page hadn't loaded up yet. But I would just go ahead and say that unless Denver does something drastic, I just feel like the series is going to be over soon. I do like that they're getting 2.5 points, the Nuggets. I think they'll play strong. The games have been close. Sort of gotten superhuman efforts out of multiple guys in these games. I don't know, man. I guess I'm sort of struggling actually with where to bet on this one. What do you think?
I'm frankly shocked at the way the series has gone. I cannot. I was really of the impression that Denver was going to handle them. I don't know why I thought that. I suppose
a lot of people didn't. I don't know why they did either because Denver doesn't do it in the postseason. But
yeah, I know. And you know what? I really just. I guess maybe I was just biased because he never did anything for me. But I just forgot how good Donovan Mitchell is. I guess you know what I mean. Like he's been another human in this based on I don't know what and he's been. I guess he's like always been this good. I just haven't noticed, but he's been just terrific. And they just have more ammo, Utah, than Denver. It seems they have more scorers. And it's funny like when you think about Utah, you don't think of scorers or whatever, but. Look, we make fun of Mike Conley, whatever, but he's been freaking lighting it up, and then between him and Mitchell, and you have a luxury like bringing Clarkson in off the bench, you know what I mean, with instant offense like that, and Gobert's been doing fine, and Ingles is like they haven't even had to do much. It's they're just better, I suppose. And Denver, it's a kind of a tough matchup because if Jokic is not in a position where he can do whatever he wants. Right, and you can't do whatever you want against Gobert. That takes something away. And Jamal Murray, he's been great. I really thought that after the bubble they were going to really just roll out Michael Porter Jr. and say, you know what, we need some offense, and you're the guy that's going to bring it to us. But I guess he's, just opted to go another direction.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to explain that one, and it's probably going to be him when it comes to his job being lost because. While he's done a great job with developing this young talent, it's pretty unforgivable the way he manages this postseason roster, in my opinion. I don't think you can just play 9 guys 24 minutes and try and win and just have 2 of them that play heavy minutes. Even Jamal Murray goes in and out of the rotations at times. It's just weird. You should have this stuff figured out. Anyway, Jokic historically has dominated Gobert. I think it's actually the team he scored the most fantasy points per game against is the Utah Jazz, and that has not been the case. I would say Gobert has, in real-life basketball, significantly outplayed him in this series, and we haven't gotten the major Gobert game the major Jokic game that we thought we would. I think we would have got it in game 2, but it turned into a blowout because he only played 30 minutes and he put a 51. He was probably on his way to 65, 75. But if from a DFS perspective, you're going to have a very hard time talking me into not playing Jokic today. I know there's other guys to spend up for, but if you want to compare Jokic versus Kawhi, be my guest. I'm going to happily take Jokic, and I'll take Paul George and Luka as my main spend ups. That's how I look at it from a DFS perspective. And I think Denver plays this game close. It's a really close to game. Maybe Denver does extend it one more. I don't think I'm actually going to bet game straight out, but I do think that we want to get we want Jokic in our lineups in my opinion.
What do you think of Paul George?
Well, we'll get into that in the next game, but I like Paul George, but we have to talk about the Denver one.
No, I meant in general. I was talking sports in general. It's pretty brutal. Man.
Oh yeah, I thought we did it. Yeah, it's a story I've seen before too. It's a little bit strange. That's all I can say. But we'll talk about that whole game because that's a really weird situation, and I don't know what entirely goes on with him. And people all want to say, "Oh, he's just terrible to play all this stuff." This guy he gave LeBron a run 8 years ago when he was 21 years old in Indiana. It's not like he can't play in the postseason. I just don't know if he's comfortable with this sort of 1B kind of a 2-person. It's always been weird like that. He's never really had the ball in his hand except for that Indiana time. And I think that's where it just seems a little disjointed on the Clippers' end to me. But we'll get into that in that game. But from a DFS perspective, do we I like Jokic, obviously. Murray, I feel like, is a wild card play all the time. So if he's not going to, which is weird on a 2-game slate, not to get that much ownership, but he's super interesting because he can go out like he did last time and score 50 real life points. I think the real interesting play is Michael Porter Jr. If you're trying to save your job, I think they're pretty clear in Denver that they know this kid is the franchise. I think Mike Malone is vain enough not to care about losing his job. But if you're in a must-win spot, this kid was like your best offensive weapon outside of Jokic for a while. I'm really not sure what they're doing. And then they've got Millsap projected for all these minutes, and Jeremy Grant's going to play 7 million minutes again. I'm struggling to figure out their rotations, but I do think that they play that hot hand mentality, and it's really hard to pick up on. And everybody's going to flock back. We weren't playing Millsap at 4.3 because he wasn't getting the minutes, and now at 5K, he's going to be an incredible chalk. So it just feels like a weird, maybe we can do something here and get away from this, huh?
Well, if you felt weird about that, if you felt weird about that, you even left off probably the top point per dollar play in all the optimals. It's got to be Monty Morris,
Yeah, Monty Morris, yeah.
It just seems like, I don't know. It feels like you're just not supposed to just play the top projected point per dollar play on a 2-game slate with a guy that you can't really count on to do the right thing in either sense, So I don't know. I think I agree with you, man. I think that I think you got on a 2-game slate. I think you maybe do have to gamble on Michael Porter Jr. No one. I won't say no one's going to play him. It's a 2-game slate. Everybody's going to play everybody, right? But
he's going to be very low.
He's going to be low on relative to his chances of winning.
Let's put it this way: at 7,500 in the same, like they actually have another. They might have Gary Harris back today, but it's not really going to affect that much for him, I don't think, because Gary Harris is probably not going to play more than like 15, 16 minutes. But I mean, you look at who else they have that that's even sort of like a guard. Like Porter's not a guard, but at least he can play like a regular wing. Like other than Jamal Murray, you got Millsap, Jeremy. These guys are like bigs. Like Jokic, they're all bigs. So they they decided to stop playing Torrey Craig, basically. It seems like in this series, that was the adjustment they sort of made in the last game was forget Torrey Craig, which they did give it 57 points, so they might want to change that, or they might let Gary Harris play a few more minutes. But
good idea.
But overall, I think Jamal Murray's actually not going to be crazy high owned either. So Murray and Jokic certainly make the most sense, but Porter is the best to me tournament play.
Well, I'll tell you, Bobby. I mean, I think that something you said like 10 minutes ago is something that I think maybe Mike Malone should have heard, and I just don't think he has, in that while defense is good and all that stuff, you're going to need to put points on the board in this environment. And he doesn't like the way Michael Porter Jr. plays defense, and he's made it very clear by his actions that he doesn't want him on the court. And because of that, and the fact of the matter is that he gives up a little bit defensively, but he gives up so much more when he's off the court offensively that it's just a bad move. And I just got this weird feeling he's just going to do it again. And if anything, maybe he plays, like you said, maybe he would make sure that Torrey Craig gets more minutes and maybe runs Gary Harris out there and he forgets that he actually needs to put on the freaking board to stay with Donovan Mitchell's going to stay doing what he's doing. He's going to have to try to win a shootout somehow. And with that said, I think that Jamal Murray is he's just kind of forced to be a good play, right? I mean, I like him. I like Jokic. My first build is actually just like 8 good plays. It's not going to really win anything. But my first lineup build has both Gobert and Jokic together.
I like that.
Yeah. And on the other side of the other game, it has neither a Kawhi nor Paul George. So that could already be a little different. But you can't. But this is not winning because it's got all this Denver value together, none of which can get. I mean, it can't all get there together. I mean, I have Millsap, Grant, and Monty Morris in the same lineup. So I don't know if that's particularly optimal, but Michael Porter Jr. I might have to try it with you. I will, and then what the good thing is we can blame Mike Malone if it doesn't work. That's all.
Yeah, I mean that's the fun thing to do, but just that's what you said it on another show we did the other day. We're not allowed to complain, right? We don't get to complain if we don't get our minutes from our guys because we know what we're getting into. Now maybe we can make a little complaint and say, "Wow, Michael Porter Jr. is plus 15 and everybody else is minus 15. What the hell are you thinking, Mike Malone?" But we certainly shouldn't be surprised regardless.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's interesting what you mentioned because Gobert's price is so tempting.
Well, who else? I mean, so what do you
I
think?
I like
play
Paul
the center position, and then okay.
I'm going with the Paul George thing tonight. I just don't see this lasting forever. I kind of like if the game was a 3-1 series, I would love Paul George tonight because I would think they would try and get him going. They don't have time to try and get anybody going. They need to win a game. But if they're going to play Paul George and Luka and Jokic, you can't play. You really can't play. What's his name? So that's where I'm at.
Well, I can tell you that on FanDuel as my lineup slowly populated, you could play a lot of stuff. Like on FanDuel, I have the total opposite. Like on FanDuel, it's so funny. My first build on FanDuel had no Jokic and had both George and Kawhi with Luka.
Right.
And because I was able to do like Zubac and Kleber and all that other crap, and Monty Morris. So it's really interesting, actually, the way the sites just kind of forced me into doing this. So DK had neither of them, and then FanDuel had both of them. And I didn't do that on purpose, just the way I just kind of led me down that path, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the minutes, so I do think with the Utah players, we can actually bump the minutes down a tiny bit, and that sounds weird. I don't see the teams playing the same type of desperation. In fact, I actually think the Rockets cost themselves. I really think the Rockets are in trouble now, and I think it's something that they sort of overdid it when they just had the 2-0 lead. With a 3-1 lead, I don't know that they're gonna push 40+ minutes. I do think Mitchell's kind of interesting because he's not going to be that heavily owned, and obviously he's putting up 7 million fantasy points every day. And they're also not going to play Torrey Craig, but with Gary Harris, I don't know who's exactly supposed to guard him. I mentioned this the other day when you have Mike Conley in the lineup, you should expect the guards to just pulverize this team.
Right.
I don't know, but so I guess that lends itself back to the Jamal Murray. I guess I'm struggling with these guys because they're all sort of like. I think that what I'm going to end up doing is just saying, F it, I'm just going to play Clarkson. And that's where that's pretty much going to be Clarkson, maybe Royce O'Neal or Joe Ingles. But that's
I have Ingles in my lineup on FanDuel.
I think Ingles makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting because I was looking at Royce O'Neal. And the truth is, if I'm going to play Royce O'Neal, shouldn't I just be playing Joe Ingles? Probably. I mean, they're a little bit price difference, but I think we can work.
Royce O'Neal, you'll get. It's kind of weird to say, but you'll definitely get the minutes out of Royce O'Neal, but you won't get the. You won't. I don't think you'll have. I don't know. Maybe we'll have the upside. I don't know. Joe Ingles, I always feel as though he could score 40 fantasy points sometimes.
The only weird part, though, Joe Ingles, since Mike Conley is back in 2 games in a total of 55 minutes, he shot the ball exactly 6 times and scored a combined total in 2 games of 24 fantasy points. That's pretty nasty. That's the part to worry about Joe Ingles. He's a very different player when Mike Conley is on the court.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the priority. I think Gobert and Clarkson are the guys I have the most interested in. I just don't. I don't think I'm going to end up getting to enough Gobert tonight, personally.
What do you think of Monty Morris and GPPs?
So he's going to be the ultra chalk on the slate because of the way that the builds are going to go. So it just depends on whether you want to take that, I don't want to say chance. What do you want to call it? Like,
right.
The guy has played minutes. He still has had only 1 game that we would have wanted him to have, and the minutes should be less today than he's had so far. So take that for what you will. I think that he's fine. I just think at mega chalk, can we maybe talk about a guy in the next game who might be a better play?
Yeah, I will also say, by the way, for a 2-game slate, it's kind of silly. But I do remember there used to be some kind of sneaky correlation between Morris and Jokic. I mean, he gets a lot of his action off the pick and roll with Jokic. So you might want to make sure that you play Morris with Jokic, which you probably end up doing anyway. You know what I mean? But that's just that's what I would say.
It leaves me in a very odd spot trying to play Morris over the guy in the next game in one of the lineup builds that I really like in my big buy-in. So that's partly why I'm trying to find a way to keep him out. I literally can't do it. I just can't not quite get the exact. I have everything I want exactly, but I'm $100 off. So, all right. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the other game because I think we'll have to sort of make it like a little overall conclusion at the end of this. And if for a 2-game slate, like these are in the playoffs, these games are tough because you get such extreme usage from some guys. Okay, so here's the way I see this. Paul George is, I think, going to break out tonight. I think that Luka is a better play than Kawhi at some, I guess, whatever. I think everybody would agree with that. I think Kawhi is the guy I fade tonight. I know he's been good. I know this is what yada yada yada, all the stuff, the minutes, everything looks great. Not for me. I'm going to go with Paul George, and I'm going to go even bolder and say that Paul George is within 5 fantasy points of Kawhi, if not exceeding him tonight, and he's significantly cheaper, obviously. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
by the way, like either side of this game, it's 8. I mean, the Clippers are 8-point favorites. That just feels like almost silly against a team that the games have been this close. But I don't know. Jeez.
So here's my comments. First of all, you've been saying this all year with respect to Kawhi, in that Kawhi is just not the guy that's going to just put up these huge fantasy games, whatever it is. And I will use this last game as an example. So let's say you didn't even look at the DFS sheet, okay? You knew that there was a overtime game, and this is what you read in the newspaper. For those of you who remember newspapers. Those of you who remember you read the newspapers. It was a 135 to 133 overtime game where Paul George had moved back and forth in one of the classic battles, like in playoff history, and he ended up with like 6x. You know what I mean? Like, he just doesn't put up like huge, enormous scores. And I agree with you, man. I mean, I think that the problem is, I mean, it's a 2-game slate and you're going to need raw points, right? So that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah, so that's why I'm siding with the guy who's going to be lower owned and cheaper in Paul George, because like the odds of him, I mean, dude, this can't go on forever. This is not a lockdown defensive team. That is not the problem. If you want to ask me the truth, like I actually think that part of the Clippers' problem overall, I mean, their offense has been amazing, so you shouldn't really question it. Like, both these teams are having legendarily awesome bubbles in terms of offense. I mean, the Mavs are already, I think, the second best of all time with the way they played this year. And Paul George has been awful. But let me just tell you something. He's barely missing paying off his value while he's been beyond awful. Now, the last game, he was really awful. He did like nothing. But he put up 38, 33, and 36 in the other 3 games. And in those games, he shot like 30, not even 30%, 28% from the floor. Like, that's not going to keep happening. The rebounds are still there. The assists are hit or miss, but he's got, he had a 7-assist game the other night. There's like triple-double potential here.
Look, the fact of the matter is that there's some people, like you said, who take it personally and some people who don't. And like, if Kawhi Leonard had 2 straight games where he had 12 points, was 3 for 30, he wouldn't give a crap. Okay?
I totally agree.
He would just do his thing, come back, with the same look on his face he always does, and just do whatever. Paul George has probably had no sleep in the past 2 days, just waiting for the next opportunity to shoot a freaking basketball. And that doesn't mean that he's going to have a good game, okay? But like we talk about in the NBA, when you can control your own usage, when you can control your own whatever, sometimes, narratives and motivation, it just matters. It's not like baseball or anything else, And I'm with you, man. I'm gonna be in there.
Yeah, I just think and I think that, by the way, the other guy who's going to be the lowest owned of the bunch is Lou Williams. And however you like this game script to go, whether the Clippers blow out or not, or he should get his minutes feel the least likely to be, I just feel like he's always going to be in there for 32 in this exact spot, even if they blow him out or however it works. And he's also the guy who's just going to be unowned and could shoot himself into the winning lineup. Like, this guy can put up 50 fantasy points. That's part of the other reason why Kawhi, Paul George, and all that, it can be tricky at times, because in a funny way, and now don't get me wrong, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are obviously better, but in a funny way, the actual most efficient offense that they ran all season was Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell at the beginning of the year running the screen and roll. So this is the long shot. I don't think this is going to happen. I think a lot of people are going to play Zubac, but maybe what we're missing is we should be playing Montrezl Harrell. After the white bitch comment that he made the other day, sorry, the white BITC, whatever, I don't know what I'm allowed to say. But that he called Luka, I was sort of wondering how that would play out, because it was a weird. It's a weird time for all that stuff, obviously. I thought that the Clippers might want a little bit of nasty in this game and like a little bit of, you know what, let's go. We're winning the title right now. And in my mind, in that 2-2 situation, it just feels weird to lock them into Zubac, who they don't even need to play on the court. Wouldn't you just bring in Harrell? Or maybe play Marcus Morris at the 5, if anything? You know? Get your best guys out there?
Listen, the most important thing you said in that whole thing, that whole speech, was that everybody's going to be playing Zubac, right? So whether everything you said after that is even 40% correct, it's probably a good idea to play Harrell just because of that. You know, it's because one thing about Harrell, you know, he and we've seen this before. I mean, when he's extremely active, right? And those are the kind of guys you want, in GPPs. Now, it's possible he's just not ready. It's possible that they don't play him. But
he's been playing 18 minutes. He hasn't played.
No, I get it. But I do think that if you get him in a 25 minutes plus somehow, you're going to want him in a 2-game slate that where it's, first of all, such a natural pivot off of Zubac anyway. I'm into that. What about some of these other pieces? What about some of the, like this Reggie Jacksons and Seth Curry's, and is Kristaps playing? I presume, right? What?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's partly why the Clippers are 8-point favorites, and why everyone announced the series was over the other day, and I had to look back at my phone and see the Clippers up by 26, and then look back, and next thing I know, they're down by 2.
So you have to go back and play Kleber, right? Don't you?
Yeah, I have Kleber. I mean, I haven't gotten even to the Dallas side of things yet.
Okay. I know what you're talking. Okay.
Yeah, Reggie Jackson so I can't get this image out of my mind, okay? Like, how in the world, I understand Pat Beverly is not playing yet, and by the way, don't be surprised if that changes really soon.
Yep.
How in the world, in the most important possession in the history of your franchise, because that is what we're dealing with the Clippers right now. They're the favorites to win the title, in my opinion, still.
I
know. Guess who ends up on Luka Doncic at the end of the game?
Well, they even.
I know they ran a screen.
You were watching Barkley, right? He was saying, how can you switch that? How can you switch that?
They do the exact same play every time. How do you not have that figured out and ready? And why is it not just Paul George or Kawhi? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Or a high trap and make somebody else shoot it. It just makes no sense. Anyway, that image is stuck in my head, and I just get the feeling like, do the Clippers really want to go down swinging with Reggie Jackson? Like, I don't know. I don't see that being the case, which also lends itself, again, back to the Lou Williams potential. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not going to go down swinging with Reggie Jackson. But at 3,700.
No, he's in for me, 100%. He's in my lineup right now. He's the guy over Marcus Morris, which I hate. Over Monty Morris. But the reason he's in there is, one, he's going to be lower owned, and the other is that I simply just cannot afford the extra few hundred in this particular lineup.
Yeah, and what do you think about? You haven't talked about Dallas yet, so I guess you can wait. But I mean, I'll just come right out and say, I mean, do you like Seth Curry today?
No. Yeah. I mean, I do. He's fine. Like 4,600. Kind of had one game we would be happy with. Like, I actually think Trey Burke is a better play, and he's probably going to be higher owned. And, you call it recency bias or whatever it is. Trey Burke can create and help be a secondary scorer. Seth Curry is a shooter. Like, he doesn't do anything. So Luka creates for him. So Luka being on the court actually benefits Seth Curry. But Trey Burke is the other guy they can have who can actually get their shot, because they will try to stop Luka in this game more than they have in the past. I really think they have to. I don't understand how they haven't done that already. And you nailed it with Kleber. Like, I think Kleber's a little bit better value than some of these other guys. Now, he doesn't always do that much, and I understand it, but I'll just take the security of minutes, their faith in him, and the fact that I just expect him to score 20 fantasy points about 70% of the time or more here, and that's good enough for me. And there's also that, probably about 30% of the time he gets 30 plus or 25%. That's good for me. So I'll take the Kleber play. I would give actually Kleber a little bit of an edge over Trey Burke, but Trey Burke has a much higher ceiling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, also every time Boban comes in the game, I get nervous that I don't have him. Are we nervous about not having Boban? I mean, should we play him?
Now you're speaking my language. I actually should have thought about that a little bit more, because I didn't think of I kept thinking of Reggie Jackson versus Monty Morris, and I was thinking about Boban a little bit when I first thought about the slate, but it just sort of went aside, and I started just only thinking about centers. Maybe that's a thing to do.
Play Boban instead of Zubac.
Boban instead of Zubac, Boban instead of Reggie Jackson or Monty Morris, kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a pretty big, bold move, But also, you get
But he's got minutes now. He's coming in the game.
He's actually this is a no joke, significant playoff performer for them. He's important to their team.
Yeah.
These 15 minutes he gets in these games, or 10 minutes, or whatever it's going to be. It is crazy. The other day, he played 10 minutes, he put up 25 fantasy points. 9 minutes.
He does. That's what he does.
I know. Imagine if we could give this guy. Literally, just give him 20 minutes, and you have a lock for a double-double. It's not even a question.
Right.
But I don't know if we're going to get that. And this is a must-win spot. DFS is going to be on the court a bunch. I actually think the minutes projection for him is too low, and I think that Tim Hardaway Jr. is would be a fine tournament play, but I actually think he ends up being really chalky tonight. I think that Dorian Finney-Smith might even be is a little too expensive, but that's probably how the people will feel. So you're going to get a less than 10% owned guy who's going to play 35 minutes, which sounds pretty good to me. By the way, how did Tim Hardaway only play 30 minutes in the last game, 34 minutes, without Luka in an overtime game? I don't know how he did that.
He was good, too.
But that means that means Seth Curry and Trey Burke had it going somewhat, or Burke, I guess it was. Because
doesn't Trey Burke suck? Is he actually good?
Trey Burke is really good. Here, let me rephrase this. Trey Burke is really good if he was playing. He's a good backup guard if you need a guy. He's just not as good as the other guards at creating offense in general, like the top guards. Right. But he's an excellent for a backup guard. I think the only other guy who can create offense, really, other than Luka and Boban. I think Hardaway to some extent. But anyway, there's a lot on basketball. I do think that this spread is a little too high, so I would lean Dallas, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Clippers put it together and smoke them one game. I just don't. I don't know. Taking 8 points against Luka just feels criminal to me, so I just am not going to do it. The Dallas' only problem all season was they lost close games. They didn't get smacked down by anybody. So I'm not going to just give Clippers the automatic smackdown. Although I expect it to happen at one time in the series, and I guess that would have to happen sooner rather than later. But yeah. So who are we ending up at the end of all that playing tonight? Who is the guys who maybe you have who's a little bit off the board? Porter, I guess, is one guy we talked about who's off the board a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to say off the board, but I think you've convinced me that if you're going to play the 2-game slate in the GP, that you probably have to play Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, at least in something. And the other guy who I just want to mention, he can shoot himself out into the game too, is Landry Shamet as a cheap option. There's a ton of potential value and very little value that you can feel that comfortable with, in my opinion.
Boban,
Jackson, Shamet, Monty Morris.
Reggie Jackson. I'm not worried about Reggie Jackson beating me.
Fair enough. But what about helping you? What about giving you 23?
Right, no, what I mean is that what is he going to do from? What is he going to be? 35% owned?
Yeah, but you got Morris is probably going to be 60% owned.
Okay. You want someone? Okay, I have an idea. So maybe Denver really does suck, and they get run out of the gym, and you get Mason Plumlee at 3,300.
Oh wow, that's a really next level brain stuff. That's interesting. What about? Okay, I've got another guy. I just want to re-emphasize maybe we should be thinking more and more about this Montrezl Harrell thing. I think this actually might be the kind of clever play that a team might make an adjustment in a playoff series, right? Doesn't it seem like that? And that's really the only card left they have to play unless Beverly plays, right? We haven't shown you our real our Montrezl Harrell for 24, 26 minutes or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're going to kill you on the boards now. We're not going to let you get anything. Luka comes in. We're going to tell, he's going to call him the B word white boy again. I don't know. They don't have a whole lot of cards left to play. Make an adjustment. Do something like this. Get Reggie Jackson out of there. Whatever you have to do. Play Shamet more. Use Lou Will and Paul George and Kawhi to handle the ball, and then you play Harrell at the 5. That's it. Boom. I'm the Clippers coach now. No, I'm just kidding. But I do think I'm starting to become. I think Harrell is the best play, including Boban just because you can get an upside from Harrell of minute. Like, you could get 45 fantasy points out of Harrell. That's the part that's so enticing. You know what I mean? And I know he hasn't been the same, but everybody's not the same until they are. It's not like he doesn't know basketball.
Harrell, Michael Porter Jr.
Oh, you could win that in the $15 tournament. You could win it.
No, I'm just like putting names that if I want to say, make sure to have one of these in each lineup, right?
Yeah.
Harrell, Boban, MPJ, Plumlee, and Jordan Clarkson.
I would throw Royce O'Neal into the conversation only because of the minutes, and he's not going to be that high owned.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Maybe that'll be the way to play the 2-game slate.
Yeah. And everybody will play Kleber over Royce O'Neal when, in fact, they both are going to play the same amount of minutes and project pretty similarly. So that's what we do. We found our little way of differentiating. All right, let's talk a little bit. We did a baseball thing, but we're going to talk and go through the slate real quick. There is one baseball game that I would bet on, and I would go out there and get on it right away. Make sure you bet on wait, I had it pulled up before. I lost it because I changed to my NBA pages, and it's a pretty obvious one to me, but I don't like betting straight up one baseball game situations very often, but this is one that I have to bet.
Oh, the Arizona game, right?
The Arizona-Colorado game. Somebody's going to have to explain to me how Arizona is now a favorite in this game. I am baffled. Is that mean that maybe Marquez is not going to pitch? I don't know what it means because it's a line I cannot get on board with. If anything, I'd be looking a little bit like I would want the Arizona under. I don't really want the under on the Colorado. But I'm becoming more and more fond of that as a GPP play for Marquez and as a I think you bet Colorado straight up to win that game.
Hey, I'm not going to argue with you.
All right.
I think these lines are always pretty efficient, so I need a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, I'll root.
Just a quick reminder for everybody out there, please remember to like and subscribe, follow BetQL. We did get a guy asking to sign up, Maurice earlier, Fenton, which is great. He's a good dude. Our buddy Jamie's here. Hey, what's up, buddy? Jamie's the guy who won all the money last week. Jamie, good to see you, man. I almost pulled a you earlier this week and then at the end of last week, and hopefully you can bring us a little luck today. You guys, we're going to talk a little baseball if that's good with you. If you have any questions, get them into chat, ask any QQs, give us your ideas, whatever you guys want to talk about, we're here for you. And we are here for it. So getting into the baseball sheets, that's the only game I would straight up bet on in baseball.
I'm gonna tell you what I'll bet on in baseball.
You got one?
What's the, but you gotta tell me the line, okay?
Okay.
What's the line and the total of Seattle, San Diego?
Oh, this is interesting. You want to go with an upset, huh? Let's see. Wow, it's still scrolling over. There's not that many games. Come on. Seattle, San Diego. It is San Diego minus 200. It's only minus 200. Could be worse.
What's the over-under?
Over-under is 8. I think you bet the over for sure.
Yeah, I want the over in the Seattle, San Diego game. That's going to be my bet. And probably Seattle's going to get 8 by themselves. But we'll talk about that later.
Oh, my God. This guy just loving just this ultra-contrarian nature of this Seattle and the Giants, his favorite teams. Oh, the Giants have actually been crushing us since we started talking about them. So maybe you're onto something here. All right. So real quick, we'll just go. I'm just going to do a quick game by game, but we'll just do a quick run through. We do have a video loaded up too.
86%. It's working on it.
It's almost loaded up on the YouTube channel. Let me just stretch out my screen here. And the first game I have on BetQL here, which I'm having a little trouble with this right now. All right, well, that site's freezing, so I'm going to jump over to something else. That wasn't the BetQL one, by the way. That was a different one. I just have to get my baseball page. Sheets, while I'm doing this real quick, just talk real quick about how tough the pitching is.
Yeah, so the pitching, well, it's tough in is that it's great. I mean, there's a lot of pitching to choose from at different price points that, and it's unclear what you gain by saving money. It's kind of strange. So there's 3 tiers. There's like really at the top you have Cole and Bieber, and then just under that you have Giolito and to a lesser extent Castillo, and then you have like kind of in a tier by himself at not by himself. You're never in a tier by yourself, right? But at 7,600 or something like that, 7,600, you have Paddock, who is in that matchup I just kind of sarcastically alluded to against Seattle, where Seattle's bad enough as it is, and they also just traded Daniel Vogelbach, who, while he hits under 100 or whatever, he always provides some power that righties have to kind of concern themselves with. Now with him out, I mean, Paddock's going to be in a really, really difficult spot to fade. So you're going to have to choose between, Cole and Bieber for openers, not to mention the Castillo and Giolito are just both really, really good also. So it's going to be tough to create your DFS lineups and be completely content that you're getting the points you need.
Yeah, it's a little bit how playoff basketball has been lately. Like we've had so many. I mean, and that's how pitching is a little bit. We've had so many guys we know are going to go off that you just have to go, I hate not playing that guy, but I can't play everybody. Anyway, that's a little bit how I feel about this pitching slate. I personally will just real quickly before we go game by game, I will just say how I have them ranked. I have Cole still number 1, but I'm not sure I'm going to stick with that. I have Paddock number 2, but I'm not sure I'm going to stick with that. I'm generally a guy who, even in tournaments, I want to get my pitch points out of my pitchers as much as I can. And I don't mind eating a little chalk with pitching. I also don't mind taking a low-owned guy who's got that upside. So my low-owned guy with weird upside, and I know you guys are going to laugh at me, is Marco Gonzalez against San Diego. This kid just literally the most disrespected man in the history of DFS, gets stacked against every time, never paid off for anybody. And then everybody talks about it as if they made a genius move when someone hits a home run off the relief pitcher in the 9th inning because he only went 8 strong that time.
Pretty funny.
It's pretty good for me and this guy. So I like your GVP plays are him or Kyle Gibson or Sean Manaea, who's not going to get enough ownership because of these other guys in that range. Herman Marquez. There's a lot of good options, but the preference would be Cole, Paddock, Giolito for me, and Bieber. And I don't know that. Maybe you can find ways, and we'll talk about it as we go through this. We'll do about 20 minutes on this. We'll go through it anyway, each game by game, who we like from a hitting perspective, because it is a little bit of a weird, because the pitching's strong, it's a little bit of a weird hitting slate. So, Sheet, you ready to go for it? I'm going to call it my order of games.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, Chicago at Detroit. No interest in either pitchers, right?
Chicago, Detroit, no interest in either pitcher.
Okay. Everybody wants to stack Chicago because Spencer Turnbull is not a name that everyone knows and he's supposed to suck, right? Well, the guy just doesn't give up any home runs and keeps the ball on the ground. And it's been the same story every year. Does have a terrible bullpen behind him. Can get himself in trouble with the walks, so you kind of like that, which leaves me neutral on the Cubs, leaving me less ownership than most people are going to have on them, but 5 to 10% on some of these guys. And then the 2 guys who I'm prioritizing will be Kyle Schwarber and Javi Baez.
Schwarber's really cheap on FanDuel specifically, and I don't mind playing the cheaper guys on Chicago. Hayward, if he gets in, what's his face? Bote again is fine. But again, when you're dealing with construction and lineups, like if I'm going to play Cubs, those are going to be the constructions where I have Castillo with Marquez. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm with you. I think that Turnbull's underrated. I think that the Cubs are overrated, and I'm kind of with you. I'll have some exposure, but they're I'm not going to be selling out my rest of my lineups to make sure I get them.
Yeah, and also just a reminder, I played the Cubs and they nearly won me all the money last night, but there's times where I just want to point out these guys have basically sucked all year long.
Hey, I have a dumb question. You asked in passing for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Do we have any information on Tyler Chatwood today?
I was all into this early in the day. I just don't think he's going to throw enough pitches or feel safe enough. And if it was another slate, we could gamble with him. But why would we do that on this slate? You know what I mean?
Well, excuse me, but yesterday probably my best lineup was something like this when I freaking took the shot on Flaherty. You know what I mean? We didn't know how far he was going to go, and he could have done even better. So,
how many pitches did he throw?
I don't know.
I don't think he could have done any better because I know he was at 50 pitches through 5 innings. That doesn't happen. You know what I mean? It's just too much to ask for to me. I mean, I don't. And it was fluke. The odds of Flaherty outscoring yesterday, Trevor Bauer, were basically non-existent. And they just happen sometimes. It's going to happen. I just don't see why you would. But also, Flaherty's one of the best, probably 10 talent pitchers in baseball, maybe 15. Tyler Chatwood, even though I believe he got better, I mean, let's not get crazy with him. He's not Flaherty.
Okay, just throwing it out because you're the Chatwood guy. I didn't like him.
Dude, I'm into it. I just wish that it was I wish I had if they say he's good to throw 100 pitches or whatever, but even still, there's just other guys to really like in this price range today.
Fair enough.
Minnesota, Cleveland. This is where you get Bieber. We're not going to play Rich Hill, although, like, I promise you, one of these days, this guy's going to have like a no-hitter through 7 with like 11 Ks, and we're going to be going, why did we play Rich Hill again? Shane Bieber is going to be fairly popular, but not crazy. I am on the board with maybe making him the least owned of my high spend-ups, which is the first time I've said that all year. 44% strikeout rate, obviously easily what would seem like the best pitcher on the slate. I think it's dangerous for him against this Minnesota team, and I'm trying to whittle down my pitchers. So while I will definitely have Bieber exposure, will I play him in my only 1,500 lineup? As of right now, probably not. Because I think Minnesota has enough danger in their lineup to get to him. They've also had 140 career plate appearances against him. You tend to study your pitchers in your division more than others, especially on years like this where you have to face them multiple times because of the weirdness of the schedule. And they have a career. They hit 320 out of him with like a 430 on base percentage. And yeah, they strike out some, but even actually they've struck out less against him than most teams have. So I'm willing to take that chance and use that as a reason for maybe getting a little bit less Bieber tonight.
Both Cole and Bieber do not have cupcake matchups. I will just say that. I mean, they're both matchup proof. You know that by now, right? But it's not like these teams are going to lay down to them. You know, so that's what and you know what? That's what makes the Paddock. I mean, all my kidding aside, that's what makes the Paddock play kind of rough. You know what I mean?
I do think Bieber on FanDuel at a crazy high price where he doesn't get ownership because I think his ceiling is as high or higher than anyone's on the slate, right there with Cole. Okay. Maybe you play him over there in single-digit ownership, which just feels really enticing, right?
He's really going to be single-digit owned over there?
12K. There's no way he's going to crack more than 10%. Bauer was 12K on an easy slate yesterday. He was like 14% or something.
Well, I'll probably try that then.
Yeah, that feels like the way to go more than the two-pitcher site for me because I just want the ownership advantage. And we don't like bats from this game. We talked about this earlier, right? Nothing but Lindor, Leplo, and Ramirez would be who you consider. But on this slate, I'm not going for it personally.
And the other thing that you keep mentioning, which again I forget about, is when you play a guy like Leplo. I mean, you always have that pinch hit risk with him. You know, so yeah.
I was wondering. It's weird today. We had a lot more people in chat the other day. It was kind of strange. It seems like it's hard to tell the timing. It's funny. I always think the pre-lock they're all going to go back to Roto Grinders or other shows they already know, but they've been coming to us for the pre-lock stuff on our channel, and then they've also come to us on BetQL a few times. So maybe we do need to talk a little bit more about this pre-lock stuff one of these days when maybe pre-lock for baseball or something.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next one. We got your Yankees and the Atlanta Braves. Garrett Cole, obviously. Now, he is currently my top guy. Sheets, do you feel that he's the top guy? It's kind of like, I don't know. I'm sort of starting to wonder about it a little bit.
I mean, the more I see, I was kind of getting into the narrative street part of this, by the way. He got really, really pissed. He got taken out of this last game. And I feel as though that no one's taking him out of this game unless he begs them to. So I think that he has a pitch floor that's whatever it is. So I do think that he's probably the best raw play. I don't know though, man. I mean, Giolito's been so nasty, and he's against Pittsburgh, and who's definitely worse than Atlanta. I don't know. I really just don't know. I mean, certainly a top play. I don't know if I can make him better. I don't know.
No, I just the issue of pointing things out, like I love Giolito in general, but I just want to point out that like his games have come against Detroit, who's one of the worst offensive righties in baseball. Yep. His good games, the other one was Milwaukee at the beginning of the year when they were the highest strikeout team in baseball. And then he had a good outing against Cleveland, which was a good outing, and then he struggled against St. Louis. I understand. It is really tough deciding between these guys. I think when the more I talk about it, it just always feels easy to just go back and say, you know what? Garrett Cole is still one of the best pitchers in baseball, and I'm just going to play him. I think that he's a little bit less likely to get rocked than no question, he's less likely to get hit than any of these guys are. But if you're not playing Garrett Cole today and you can somehow afford him, I do think you want to try and take a shot on Freddie Freeman. It's the kind of matchup that Freddie Freeman should actually be pretty good in. I don't think that you're going to end up doing that, but it's just a fun on a long tournament play or whatever, long shot tournament play. How about your Yankees bats? We like them. Why don't we prioritize which ones we like the most?
Yeah, so Judge is back, or I presume he's back. I like Aaron Hicks a lot. He'd be my top guy. I like Ursula. I like Luke Voigt. Those would be my three favorites. And if Brett Gardner gets in the lineup, I think I do like him actually. Those would be and you were talking about Sanchez earlier, and I think that the Yankees are very, very much in play actually. I mean, look, this prospect for Atlanta is supposed to be pretty good, but you could talk to me about what it means when your prospect comes in, faces the Yankees, for example. Not less, you know what I mean? It's these guys can be somewhat nervous sometimes.
I mean, yeah, look, Casey Mize has got hit pretty good the first two times out, and he's another one of the top prospects. So, yeah, I'm into the Yankees a little bit. The pricing makes it a little bit tricky on DraftKings, especially not so hard on FanDuel. The priorities for me are Voigt and Hicks, and I don't really care what you do else with it. Voigt, Hicks, and Judge. Excuse me. The Judge is going to be hard to get in if you want to play the die-in pitchers. So, while I like this stack, you're going to hear a lot of this from me today. It's just not a stack that I'm like, okay, I need to have that whole stack. But I do like stacking against young guys, so no question I will have some Yankee stacks, and those are my priority guys. Oakland at Texas, I know you like the Texas side of this one. I sort of like both pitchers, but probably not going to end up playing too much of them, maybe a little Manaea. I don't really have interest in the bats outside of Olsen and Chapman personally. How about you? Who's
it's not the Texas side I like. It was the Oakland side.
Yeah, no.
And it was more on – I think it's more on FanDuel than anything.
Yeah, it's doable.
These guys are really – they're pretty expensive on DraftKings. And I was unaware they were going to be that lucky. And it's so funny. When I mentioned Oakland, you're like, why does everybody like Oakland so much? I have no idea. I don't know anybody like Oakland.
I've seen these stories so many times, and we get on the big slates, and I'm like, why do we stack against good pitchers? And I know he's getting the ball hit hard against him. He still isn't getting lit up and winning people GPPs by playing against him.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, he gave up 2 home runs last time he played Oakland. He also struck out 6 and had 22 fantasy points. Struck out 9 and had 22 fantasy points. 2 solo home runs. And look, that's what you're looking for from Olsen and Chapman. For me, I just don't see anybody else on the team that I go, yeah, I know Piscotty had a home run last night, but the fact that he's going to be double-digit owned tonight, just no thank you. He's batting 7th. I'll find somebody else. Grossman, sure. But I just don't have any interest in these other guys, especially in the best pitchers park in baseball. So that's me. Sheets has got something else going on. All right, so I'm going to.
No, it's fine. No, I'm just posting on
slight pitchers umpire in that one, by the way, FYI.
Okay.
We're going to move over to Cincy and Milwaukee.
Well, hold on a minute. So you mentioned the pitchers a little bit. So Manaea is interesting in respect that he's he's right in that same price point as Paddock. So if you're going to play GPPs and you're going to try to pivot a little bit, it does make for an interesting pivot.
I agree, and a guy who has definitely shown the strikeout upside in the past, but hasn't been there as much this year. Texas can definitely help you out with that part of it. There's a lot of Ks in that lineup, and there's a lot that they just cannot hit lefties. I mean, this game, if you look at just run totals only, I mean, you're looking at a team. Texas has a lower run total than Atlanta against Garrett Cole. Just keep that in mind. So Cincinnati, Milwaukee, this is going to be the epitome of a stay away game for me. Extreme hitters umpire. I like Woodruff and Castillo in general. Maybe they squeak into one. I don't even know how they're going to. I just think I'm now with the fact that it's a hitters umpire on this slate and lineups that aren't actually that
how bad of a hitters umpire is it?
Probably like the 4th or 5th strongest hitters umpire. Maybe a little bit worse than that. There's a couple other guys, but he's definitely extreme, very extreme. But I just don't feel like we need to fall as much in love with this spot as I think that you're wanting to from a clever standpoint. Which it is. It's a clever play, but it's not.
Not only that, also the pitcher's umpire for me bothers me because what's his name?
Hitters umpire.
Hitters umpire because Castillo needs those corners. You know what I mean?
And he's not shown this. He's not really been the same strikeout guy these other guys have, but Milwaukee, we've seen them help teams out with that a little bit. Castillo, only game we would take him with all year long was the opening day against Detroit. Other than that, we would not have wanted him in any of his starts. So that's just worth noting. Brandon Woodruff is different. He's actually the guy I would have had more interest in, and I like his matchup a little bit better. I also think he has got a much bigger ceiling and has had some really, really tough matchups so far. So I would have taken a shot with Woodruff, but I'm just not doing it now.
Yeah, I don't like any of the hitters from either side, and Castillo remains in my brain. Let's put it that way. I haven't made the call yet with what I'm going to do with it, but he certainly, for me, is FanDuel is pretty cheap. Also, I'm still going to have to figure out what I'm going to do with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the only hitters you play in this game are maybe Yelich, or Moustakas or Winker. Those are the guys who I would play. I'm probably more on FanDuel because the price is a little high over here. Although Yelich is definitely reasonable for Yelich. I don't mind taking a shot there. And maybe a note looking going forward, I think Milwaukee is starting to find themselves a little bit. Like, I really do. So not today, but one of these days soon we might be talking about stacking them up. All right, so we're at my favorite hitting spot, I think, on the slate, at least as of here we are at 4 Eastern time. Sheets, let's get our White Sox engines. Let's fire them up, buddy.
It's funny because when I first looked at the slate and I was looking at the pricing and all this stuff, I just didn't think I was going to be able to get the White Sox in, because it seems like the natural thing that I would want to do. I like playing the White Sox in general. I like playing them against lefties. I like playing them against weak lefties, and it seems like a perfect matchup. And then I looked at the prices and I said, "Whoa, this is going to be really difficult to get in." And these are like my first thoughts. I'm like, okay, the guy I know I can get in is Edwin Encarnacion at 3,900, but these other guys are so expensive. I don't know if I'm going to get the pitchers I want. But the more I kind of tinkered around with it, it's really not that bad. I mean, you're going to have to, I'm going to have to do some funny business maybe in other positions. But listen, you joke about this, whatever it is, but you have guys like Danny Mendick or whatever. Guys like that are under 3K that are just in the lineup every day make these stacks go,
Yeah.
And he hit a home run the other day. You know what I mean? I'm not betting him on hitting a home run, but I mean it's not like he's some like Lewis Brinson. You know what I mean? Like he's some guy who could actually put the bat on the ball and keep an inning going. You know what I mean?
I'll do even better. He's got 2 home runs in his last 8 games, by the way.
There you go. So
a nice little 5-game hitting streak.
And I will also tell you, make fun of whoever, but McCann, he's done some business. What's his name? Engel has done some business. So you can make all kinds of versions of this White Sox thing roll. And if in fact they're going to be low owned, I just don't think they're going to be, because again I think that everybody's going to see what I see. I just do, and I think they're going to end up getting some ownership. But it seems as though it's a nice, not easy play, but it's against the pitcher he's against is not that great. They're good hitters. They're good power hitters. They've been hot, and let's play them.
Yeah, I don't think it brought to anything great. I like the White Sox. They've also really been especially crushing the ball at home. I don't really know that there's any reason, but whatever happens, man, I'll stick with it as long as it's working in baseball. Baseball's a different kind of sport that way. It is worth noting that Steven Brault hasn't given up any bombs this year, which is kind of weird. But he's only pitched 12 innings, but still, he's a low K guy, which you would think these guys. I mean, just a low strikeout lefty against this team should just get massacred. I mean, the only issue you have, like these guys have like 25K strikeout rates, like Robert and Jimenez. If you eliminate the strikeouts, or at least take a little bit of them out, that's usually when the power comes. That was the reason I played Sanoa as the one-off last night. When you get a pitcher like Savale who's around the plate, if you're going to be around the plate, you're not going to walk a ton of guys, even if you do get some strikeouts. I just feel like there's a bunch of boom upside for this offense. I don't think they're going to be like crazy high owned, but I do think they'll have some ownership. I don't think it's going to be that high. I also think I just have to point this out on FanDuel. We've talked about this. Jose Abreu is going through one of those like once a year, maybe a couple guys get this hot. He's red hot. He's hit 7 home runs in his last 5 games. I think we have to just ride it out. So you try to play him and Encarnacion both, I think, maybe on FanDuel. You know what I mean? Because we still have a discounted Encarnacion on both sites. A guy who's not going to get that much ownership on both sites, and a guy you can play them both together. He's 2.8K Encarnacion on FanDuel. So maybe this lineup stacks out a little bit better on FanDuel. I also like going double shortstop on FanDuel today, which means Tim Anderson. So there's a lot of ways to go, but I just want to throw that specific build out there. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw the winner out of that Abreu Encarnacion stack there, right?
Yes, I mean they certainly have. I don't know what their run total is, but it's
The highest on the slate.
Oh, is it really? I mean, they got to be popular. They just have to be.
I believe it's the highest on the slate. I mean, but the thing is, though, you got no sheets. It's pretty close to a lot of other teams, and it's pretty close to a lot of other teams that have a lot cheaper bats that people are familiar with, not named Danny Mendick and Adam.
And who's going to have the Engel, Mendick, Robert, Tim Anderson four-man?
Yeah, you got other than Anderson, who's the only one. Yeah, no one's going to have the very bottom of it, I don't think. Maybe they'll include parts of it, but I don't think they'll take the whole bottom. All right, well, my page just froze. That was supposed to take me to the next game. That's, one of the frustrations that we run into here with the restream. Guys, reminder, get any QQs into the chat before we get out of here. If you watch this video later, send it to me or Sheets. Hit us up on Twitter.
So you want me to go to start? I mean, so the next game I have on my list is KC St. Louis.
Yeah, I just don't have my ownership. But yeah, go ahead.
No, so the KC St. Louis game is a very intriguing DFS game. It's probably going to generate the chalk values hitters of the day, because with all of the good pitching they're out there, these could be. I mean, I probably am exaggerating because I forget about the other pitchers. These could be two of the weakest 5 pitchers on the slate. All in the same game. It's kind of.
Why do you keep saying that about Wainwright? He actually.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was thinking. It's kind of unfair to say that about Wainwright. But the Cardinals specifically are very cheap. They're against Matt Harvey, who I don't know where he's been. Honestly, I don't know what he's been doing. But
oh man!
Yeah, but it's a nice spot for the Cardinals to do some damage, and they did a pretty decent job yesterday, and they rested Colton Wong off a 7-game hitting streak, and he plays. He's going to be cheap, and Dexter Fowler's going to be cheap, and not to mention Edmund, who maybe not cheap, but he's good, and DeJong, and who else? Goldschmidt's not cheap, but what was the other guy? Like Tyler O'Neill. I mean, like all these guys are pretty affordable, and they're going to be pretty chalky. I mean, you have Matt Harvey, who people just love to play against anyway. So I think the chalk build, we talked about this earlier, is going to be some combination of Cardinals Cubs.
I think you actually nailed it the first time we talked. I think I was wrong. I think that KC is going to have pretty good ownership here.
Oh, you think so? Okay.
I'm looking at projections and the prices, and I don't mind if you have to use somebody there, but if you try and stack this KC team up, I think you're playing a flawed game. I don't remember it ever working against Wainwright, even when he was bad. He has not been bad. He's allowed exactly 1 home run. He's allowed 4 walks in 3 starts, which is not good, not terrible. Pretty decent hard hit rate, but not terrible. It's no thank you. I'll take the cheap value where I need to get it. And if you like, Ryan O'Hearn is a great example of a guy who's going to be double-digit owned, and I don't care what your price is. Like, if you play first base and you haven't hit a home run all year, not to say that you can't. Obviously, that can change, but it just feels weird to use that position on a guy who hasn't even done a single thing in one game this year.
Would you rather have, Ryan O'Hearn or Miguel Cabrera?
The funny part is I think people naturally gravitate and go Ryan O'Hearn. Miguel Cabrera at least hit 3 home runs this year. At least he hit the ball hard. Ryan O'Hearn doesn't even hit the ball, period. But having said that, now Ryan O'Hearn gets to hit a home run, and you're welcome, guys. The one guy who does really stand out to me, though, here and is not going to be owned, Maikel Franco.
That's interesting.
Why? I know he's struggling, but this is the guy we couldn't get enough of earlier in the year. And if he was 2.9K, I can't help but think he's going to be 10 to 15% owned. But because he's 3.3, he's going to be 1% owned. I really believe that. So, maybe a guy with his power upside, I guess you can make an argument for. It's been a while since he hit a home run, but at least he's hit a number of them this year. What has he got, 6 or so? So I sort of like Maikel Franco as the low-owned guy. But, yeah, splash around with these guys if you want to, but don't make this your priority, in my opinion. Matt, it's just he hasn't been bad. We have not seen Adam Wainwright be that bad yet, and this KC team is not a team that I want on a big slate to have my whole stacks.
No.
And we have an extreme pitchers umpire in this game, by the way, too.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, and Jeremy Riak. So, For me, the priority on, and I'm honestly confused at the ownership projections, but I'll just go ahead and say the guy I like the most probably is Tommy Edman. And oddly enough, is the lowest projected owner outside of like the 7, 8, 9 hitters. So I would go Edman because of his price is probably going to keep people a little bit off of him. But Edman, Carpenter, DeYoung, Goldschmidt, Molina, and Wong. I mean, they're all fine. Like, I just want to be a little bit lower on Wong because everybody's going to play him. I really think he's going to be like 30% owned, and that doesn't feel good to play a 30% owned baseball player who hasn't hit a home run since like one of the first games of the year. So that's sort of where I'm at. But I do think that Edman is the priority.
You know, you go to have the Seattle-San Diego game. I want to change. Hopefully, people don't bet their house on my pick here because I want to change my mind because I don't like the over because I forgot that that what's his name is underappreciated. The Gonzalez. I forgot that Gonzalez people think is much worse than he is. So I'm not gonna go with the over. Going with the over was more of kind of an anti-Paddock.
I got you.
You know what I mean? So yeah. I don't want to. So I don't like the over in that because like you have two competing things. Like, if you tell me that Marco Gonzalez is better than people think to the point where you might even want to play him, then that's definitely a reason for me not to actually want the over. So I'm back to having no plays in baseball.
You know what's really weird about this game is I really thought the ownership people would just do what they always do, and that's, hey, let's stack against Marco Gonzalez. Maybe for once the industry is getting smarter when it comes to baseball because I don't see anybody trying to play anybody against Marco Gonzalez today, which is kind of interesting that they aren't. And I just going to throw out, even though I like Gonzalez a little bit, just you always have the green light and probably should just lock in like 10% Tatis every day, but especially against a lefty, not to play him ever. Like, I just think you've got to have a minimum of 10% of him every day. He's just so much better than everybody else has been. And what's great about him is he's not just better because he has more power and all that. He can go out there and steal you a couple bases if you need to do that as well. He just doesn't – he's hitting so many home runs, he's not stealing as many bases this year, but he is stealing some. So he's got just the ultimate upside, probably the best fantasy player we've seen in a while. You got to love Tatis is what is
are they having a home run derby this year?
I don't think so. I don't think it's an all-star game.
I know.
We're already halfway through the season.
Who would be the home run derby? Like Tatis, Trout?
Trout, maybe Olsen, but he's only like hitting 150. But he's got 10 home runs. I mean,
Tim Anderson.
I don't know if Trout would be. Betts probably would be this year. I don't know. It's hard to, Santander maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to the game that I think is Oh wait, we did touch it. We like Paddock. Look, I'm sorry. I like Paddock. I'm going to still play Paddock. I'm just not sure how I'm going to differentiate elsewhere. I don't know that I need to differentiate with my pitchers. I think Paddock's a good play, but I also do like Minaya, and I like the guy in this next game, which is Marquez. And honestly, everybody does pronounce it different. Yeah, Todd, we're on QLT TV today. We'll be doing these shows, by the way, every day. Todd, who just jumped into chat. So make sure you join them. We're trying to do them usually an hour before NBA lock, but we had a weird schedule today. So try to do a noon one. Didn't have as many people come in, so we'll probably go back to that NBA lock stuff. All right, Cheats, real quick on the Marquez stuff. Like, right, nobody's going to play this guy at 8K, and all he's really done wrong is be pitching in Colorado against really good teams like Houston. Maybe we should be playing this.
Yeah, I do like Marquez as a pivot off of Paddock, and like you would say, there are certain bills where I could play them both. You know what I mean? So and that could be the mad scientist play, right? To play, well, the mad scientist play Minaya with Marquez.
Yep.
Or
the real mad scientist play would be to play Gonzalez.
Gonzalez with Gibson.
yeah, something like that. That would be really it.
Oh, Jesus Christ! That's how you can get Mookie and Cody and Bellinger in your lineup.
Yeah.
So yeah, Paddock's a tough play to avoid. Of all these pitchers we talked about, I make fun, whatever. But Seattle is just they just don't have much resistance right now, especially with Vogelbach on. Again, Vogelbach only bats like 100, whatever, but at least he provides power upside that at least the pitcher should have to worry about a little bit. And,
kind of tough for me to fade Paddock here. But although I mean, it's not like he's going to score a zillion fantasy points. It's kind of weird. I just think it's, again, I'm not a cash guy, but I just feel as though he's just never going to give up more than 2 runs in this game. You know what I mean?
I moved past that game, actually. I thought we were done with that one, but I think Paddock, it is a good conversation to have, so I'm actually happy we're having it.
I'm sorry. We were talking about Marquez. Yeah.
But they're back. But it's a good, because we're talking literally about the 2 of them. So what you just nailed it, in my opinion. This is the situation where Paddock actually does have upside, but he hasn't really shown that much of it because we haven't seen it all put together in a while. Early on, when he first started pitching, he was. Marquez is like a guy who could easily be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate. He has that kind of stuff. He went through a full season where he was putting in Colorado up 40s, 35s, left and right. He's got that kind of stuff. Now, the matchup is tougher, sure, and he might give up more runs, but he's more likely to meet a strikeout 11 over 7 and throw 110 pitches and be right up there with the Bieber possibility. So for GPPs, I honestly think like I might actually end up with more ownership on Marquez, because I do think the upside is probably a little higher. Although you're right, Paddock just feels so safe. You feel warm and cozy. Then it all feels all well and good until you walk one guy and Kyle Seager hits a home run in the first, and all of a sudden you're like, why didn't I play Marquez?
And then who's that 2K guy I said from Seattle? The 21.
Oh, I don't even remember his name. I can't even remember. I never heard that guy before.
There's a 2100 guy who between him, Shedlong, Austin Nola, Kyle Lewis, and the guy you just mentioned, Corey Seager, and Kyle Seager, they're all going to break the slate. So
the A's really kind of an interesting lineup, which is going to make Matt Olson completely unavailable. Matt Olson's like batting 6th or 7th. I think it's 6th, but they put it in like that's actually great. That's exactly what you want. Like you want Matt Olson when he's lower owned, because
what's their lineup? What are they doing?
They clearly stack. They put Grossman up at 2nd, and then they clearly tried to stack the power righties against Gibson, who's been reverse power split seed in this past. We'll see how it goes, though. But yeah, I'm falling more in love with this spot. I really like the Rockies' offense tonight, and I want to find out about the roof being open. But I don't think that I can prioritize an offense with guys going to be this high owned at these prices outside of Coors. I know 4.9 looks cheap for Arenado, but I'm just going to remind people he was only like 5.5 in Coors. You know what I mean? Trevor Story is not as good of a play tonight to me as either Corey Seager. He's not as good of a hitter. He's either Corey Seager and I know everybody can come at me. If it's one of those things I would have used to say on Roto Grinders, it would have killed me. But he's not. He's really not. I would rather play Tim Anderson. I would rather play Corey Seager. And at third base, I actually know Arenado makes a little bit more sense. Roof is open, says Nathan Still. That is making a little bit of sense why this total's as high on the Arizona side. I'm still a little surprised that it's not higher than on the Rocky side. If it's going to be open, I think we have to have some conversation. Like we might have to be a little bit more worried about Marquis, but although, again, he's still a wild card.
Excuse me.
But maybe all these guys get a little bit more of a boost. Maybe the Brendan Rodgers, Matt Kemps. I think they do actually if the roof's going to be open. So that's unofficial from Nathan Stoll. I'm going to trust Nathan, but I do think that's going to end up being a big difference. And that was the first thing I was going to check when I got off the show. So yeah, with the roof open, I just think it makes everybody on both sides more in play. I don't think you want to try and stack against Marquez. But I don't mind if you want to take Escobar or Calhoun or Peralta, but I would just probably keep him as one-offs or something like that. I actually think Peralta is like an incredibly strong play. He's been letting everybody down, and he, for whatever reason, absolutely owns Marquis, and so does Escobar. So you got 2 guys who are playing in great hitting conditions that don't seem obvious. Maybe if this game was in Colorado, these guys would be at these prices probably like 60% owned. Right. So maybe we should treat it a little bit like that. Escobar and Peralta would be the 2 that stand out the most to me. Cole Calhoun's going to be popular. So will Marte, and so will both Martes, which we have right now. And I don't know why. Like, this is not a bad pitcher, guys. Let's not try and stack against this guy. Eric Johnson thought the Twins stack. I think it's a terrible idea to stack the Twins today, but I do not like Bieber as much as I would normally. Trying to just get crazy and stacking against the low pitcher might have worked once. This is not a normal situation. Like, you have a guy to do it against guys who give up like 3 runs or more like once or twice in a year. Like, you don't really want to make those stacks. Like, you're just not getting anything personally. Nathan still says open tonight and tomorrow per D-backs. Thank you, Nathan. Great information. I would have gone and checked that out right after. It's a little hard to juggle during the show, so we really appreciate you coming in clutch for us. And you know what, Dave, Eric, you want to argue these points? First of all, that was a 7-game slate that played like a 3 or 4 game slate. And having a Brewers stack is not, I don't think there's anything to be proud of. All you're doing is going and randomly picking, okay, I'll take the worst possible situation. And you're going to, overall, look, I understand it from a game theory perspective, but you don't need to do that. It's really, really not optimal. It's absolutely not optimal. And by the way, the Brewers, I don't think outscored the Cubs last night, did they?
I think that
the Brewers had 5 runs.
I think that now we're getting into a discussion of multi-entering, and
it's fine. I just hate that this is like what I don't like that. That's the natural thing is that, oh, well, if this pitcher's popular, let's just stack against him. I just think that's just sloppy, lazy, bad DFS play, in my opinion. And while it might work out once in a blue moon, show me a 100K win, then we'll talk. And I understand that Osimo may have done that last night. I just think overall, if that's your strategy, you're not max entering tournaments, you're fighting an uphill battle. It's not going to be that easy to win that many slates throughout the year if that's what you do every day.
No, but I think that's the point. The point is that it's a multi-entry type thing, especially if I'm going to do a lineup review of what he did, what his exposures were, because I have this feeling that he probably had a huge percentage of Bauer, and that those stacks were specifically created for hedging those lines.
No, I like Eric a lot. He's got a good theory because he always wants to go and do this. I'm just saying in general, I don't think the optimum theory in general is to go and stack against the best pitcher. And the thing is also that these are different pitchers than Bauer. Like Bauer's problem is he loses his mind sometimes, so you can stack against him because he does lose his mind sometimes. Right. And he can and in that he literally will throw the ball. I mean, he turned around and fired the ball over center field.
Okay. So here's what I will say. All right, you want to stack against these guys today. I'll put them in order for you. So I actually do think that you could play some Braves. You know what I mean? Like I think if you don't want to play Cole in your non-Cole lineups, I think, like you said, I think your Freddie Freeman play, Bobby, I think works great. Mm-hmm. I think you could play Acuna or whatever. And who's the other? There's another good lefty from the Braves that works here. I forget who it is, but so I think that could work. I do think that you could always play like Max Kepler. You know what I mean? And Nelson Cruz can always hit a home run. So yeah, I definitely think you can do that, but I don't think you have to do that.
Right, and the problem with the guys who you even like I like Freeman to potentially hit a home run tonight. I really do. But realistically, at 5.4, I'm going to need more than just one home run from a first baseman tonight, probably. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
5,400. So why would I? And so playing a guy like Dansby Swanson to me would be like the worst kind of a play because I understand that he's hit the ball pretty well and he's hitting the ball hard. But I have like 10 shortstops that I love, and the odds of him hitting multiple home runs before any of those guys is almost non-existent. Also, he can't steal a base for me, or he can, but he doesn't do it. He hasn't done it in forever, and you're not going to do it in this game. I personally can't get behind that. So Todd Lang asked behind it. But of course, in general, everybody makes sense as a potential home run target. It's just when you're paying this, you're not getting any discount against Garrett Cole. It feels weird to pay all the way up for Dansby Swanson and Freddie Freeman at positions that I like, when there's guys I don't like who are going to be also low owned at the same positions.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. All right. I think we're almost out of here. Real quick, we should probably touch on the Dodgers because they have one of the highest run totals of the night, are going to be really popular. And as a Dodger fan, I'm going to tell you, Sheets, right now, I am still struggling with what to do because I am believing more and more every time I watch him pitch. This is not the man I want to be stacking against. That's how I feel.
You mean Cueto?
And it sounds crazy because the Dodgers are good. I mean, look, especially a team like the Dodgers. This is his 3rd time against the Dodgers. This just screams of, all right, now it's time to crush him. And it's not like he's been great against them, but they've done nothing against him. They have hit 1 home run in a total of 9 2/3 innings. They have 4 hits, in those 9 2/3 innings. This is not exciting stuff, man. And there's a few guys who got pretty good BVP versus him. We could talk about those guys, but at really chalky ownership, I've been on the fading the stacking against Cueto thing, and it's worked out every time for me. I know one day it'll bite me, and maybe this is that day, but I'm not quite as high on the Dodgers as you might think I would be.
Yeah, I mean,
it would be nice to be able to get some Dodgers. I mean, like you said, it'd be nice to get some Corey Seager. Be nice to get some Bellinger, I suppose. But yeah, I agree with you. Cueto's sneaky. You know what I mean? Like Cueto's sneaky. He was.
He's good at keeping hitters off balance. He's really good at not getting completely lit up anymore. Like that's what he's looked like. He looks like the old Cueto. He just can limit it just without the strikeout ability quite. Although he showed the strikeout. Last game he struck out 9 against the Angels. I mean, he's not going to strike out the Dodgers. I'm not saying play Cueto. I'm just saying it's making.
I have a question. How big of a deal is this roof being open for Marquez?
I think I'm less worried about him because this guy pitches in Colorado, so I'm not as worried. It more just makes me like the bats a little bit better on both sides, to be honest.
Okay.
And I do think that now David Peralta should be the priority play. Like people aren't going to look at this, but David Peralta, I think he's hitting like 500.
Base is not there. How do you?
In a pretty good number of at bats. Excuse me about that. In a pretty good number of at bats, you've got a pretty good sample size of a guy who's really crushed him. Corey Seager is the guy who stands out from a BVP standpoint against Cueto. So does Turner a little bit. But Turner is going to be high owned at 5K. I'd rather play Arenado at 4.9 against the lefty. That's sort of where I'm at. We do have a pretty good sample size against these guys. And by the way, I just will say, like, I know it's not, across the board, like 180 plate appearances, though, is a lot. And Cueto's been pretty good, and he's looked pretty good to me. I'm going to play some Dodgers, but I'm not into this full 5-man stacking thing that other people are going to be. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say. And I think the thing is, like, they're gonna go off so often anyway. It's just to play them on a night where you can see them as such crazy chalk and so expensive. And how do I get them in anyway? Maybe we just don't go crazy with them. Maybe we go crazy with just a few of their guys and try and get Corey Seager in like 40% of my lineups or something like that. I mean, I'm serious. Seager's one of the best plays on the slate, and for some reason is going to have because of the way the shortstop position is constructed, is going to be like the lowest owned Dodger or one of them, and he should be the highest owned by like a landslide. So Seager, Pollock, you can always use Will Smith as your catcher. I like Kike. Those are the guys, but again, you don't need to play them all together. Sorry about that. I forgot my window was open. But yeah, just not quite as loving the Dodger stack. Nathan said that he the Dodgers. We can get I agree with that too. That's definitely a possibility. Weak bullpen behind him. And it's not like Cueto's unhittable. I'm just saying, like, it just feels like weird to pay so much for, like, it's almost like they're treating the Dodgers like this game is in Colorado or something with the ownership and the pricing. And as San Francisco might be a better hitter's park than it used to be, I'm not going to start treating this like it's the best hitter's park to attack yet. So that's just sort of where I'm at.
Hey, you know what? I want to
Sheets, anything?
I don't know if you addressed that. Can you hear me?
I watched the Sheets. I can't hear you at all.
You can't hear me?
No sound. That's weird. Guys, tell me if you can hear Sheets out there. Please let us know before we get out of here. Also, remember to enter in any final QQs. Sheets, you can hear me, right?
I can hear you fine.
Can you hear me? I can't. Yeah, you can hear me. You can't. For some reason, we can't hear Sheets. Not really sure what happened there, but we're going to get out of here in just a minute anyway, guys. I'm going to answer any last questions. And remember, please let us know, can you hear Sheets? Because we're trying to get this technicalities figured out on the QL TV shows. We'll get them straightened out soon. Thoughts on a Padres stack tonight? Hate it. I made a Marco Gonzalez case earlier. Marco Gonzalez is, you hear Sheets. Oh, that's great. Well, they hear you. I can't hear you. So we can't talk to each other, but we can both talk to the audience. My thoughts on the Padres stacks is that it's a huge mistake. And I think that you would only want to play Tatis or Machado, maybe even Myers, but like separately or one or two or something. Marco Gonzalez, they do this every time. Everybody tries to stack against this guy, and this guy never does anything. You guys can hear me too, right? I hope they can hear me. Marco Gonzalez has been in lights out in all these spots where everybody thinks he's going to be dominated. He did it to the Dodgers. He did it to the Angels twice. And I just think I'm not going with the Padres stack. I'm actually surprised other people aren't going with them more. But I do love Tatis and Machado, and I'm okay with Will Myers. But I just am no interest in the Padres stack for me. So Eric can hear us. That's great. Short thoughts on Yankees against Anderson's first start. Love picking on she's going to answer after me, I guess. I love picking on Anderson. He's a good young up and coming guy, but you want to pick on these guys. That you want to try and Casey Mize is a great example. Look how he struggled with the Cubs last night and the White Sox in his first outing. This is what we want to try and get guys who can't find the zone and then are forced to either leave it over the plate or get in trouble and you get into those bad, the long relief bullpens and pretty good shots. So I like the Yankees quite a bit tonight. They can hear us both, so Sheets, is on you.
Yeah, I like, first of all, the San Diego thing. I'm going to defer to Bobby on that one. I would say that there was another cheap guy for San Diego if you did want to play them. I think Ty France was I don't even know if he's going to make the lineup or whatever, but he looked pretty cheap. I'm into the Yankees. I really do want to see the lineup to see where I want to go with it, but pretty sure that I'm going to have some Yankee stacks that's going to involve Hicks and Voit, some combination of that. Do I have to now? Again, this is America. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, but do I have to play Judge in a Yankee stack or?
Okay, his mouth stopped moving, so I'm thinking maybe it's my turn to talk. I can't tell what he said, but it's all that your mouth stopped moving. We're probably going to get out of here, guys. We're going to fix these little technicalities. Remember, in general, it's going to probably be an hour before NBA lock. Remember, also, you can sign up using the code Bobby5 for 20% off of everything on BetQL. Their picks have been absolutely awesome. I wish I could take you behind the paywall. And going forward, actually, my picks were awesome yesterday on the games I actually bet. So straight sports betting has been a lot of fun during the playoffs. Anyway, we really appreciate you guys being here. We're going to be back here tomorrow. And, for Sheets, I'm Bobby saying good luck out there, everybody. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards because I can't hear Sheets, so I don't know when to end it. I'm just going to end it here.